Welcome to the Time Chronicles. I'm Pigtail Gurl.
I'm Starfire Tor. Join us as we journey beyond the outer limits of your perception.
Beyond the illusion of mainstream reality and beyond the deception and disinformation that passes for truth.
Our podcast is about self-empowerment through ancient, modern, and even future knowledge.
It's also about service to others and saving the planet.
So join us as we reveal the hidden and forbidden secrets of the world, the multiverse, and the core matrix. It's about time.
Hello, Time Chroniclers. Welcome to our show, The Rise of the Raw. We are thrilled to present to you today unique information that we hope will be uplifting. The core matrix, a miracle. Today's show will focus on Earth's ancient lost protective force field, which has now been rebuilt. It's activated, functioning, and cleaning out dark matter aberration bog.
We're also going to be talking about the wrong dominant coexisting timeline, because escape is in sight as the false matrix begins to crack.
This show also features handcrafted and inspiring The Rise of the Raw memes by Starfire Tor today for your viewing pleasure, to help you find and express your own raw.
The first thing that we want to share with you is the historical background to Earth's ancient lost protective force field, and of course, how it is that we are in the wrong dominant coexisting timeline and how we are flipping into the proper dominant coexisting timeline. These are the two most important pieces of information that you need to know in order to understand what's happening in the world today. Now, thousands of years ago, there was a mighty, tremendous extraterrestrial conflict among something called the ET Earth Consortium. These are the group of extraterrestrials that actually bioengineered the human race and other life forms on Earth. And another ET race who is infested by something called the dark matter aberration. Now, regular dark matter, as I know a lot of you know, is the glue that holds the entire universe together. It's part of the universe. We need it. It's good. But when our universe was resurrected from a terrible disaster that happened a long time ago, part of dark matter was damaged. Just as we were made from the remnants of what was lost, which is why humans have no actual understanding of who you are, where you come from. There's no owner's manual. There's no true knowledge of the universe or the bioengineering. This ET conflict was waged against another ET group that was infested and influenced by what's called the dark matter aberration, or DMA. And it's very, very simple. Think of dark matter as a brain. Think of all the little endings and nerves and connectors in the brain, electrical forces that allow it to think and do. Now, think of somebody who might have a brain injury or Alzheimer's or dementia. If you took a scan of their brain, there'd be large portions of the brain functioning. It'd be dark.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It would be lost. Well, that's how the dark matter aberration is. It's an aberration. It's not right.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that the brain isn't evil. It's just that there's something that's not right within that structure. So,
right.
Brains are something we all need to live.
And it's damaged. Now, the dark matter aberration, or the DMA, it's still functioning as dark matter. But there's also something else in our cosmos called the spark of life, or SOL, spark of life. And that spark of life is what generates our existence. I'm just going to call it that. Another name for this is the cosmic all. So you can go with either one. The dark matter that's damaged, the dark matter aberration, has the same spark of life that the rest of dark matter has, and it is constantly wanting and trying to repair itself. It wants to heal. It wants to be whole because it knows that's what it needs to be, but it's impossible. It can never be healed. There's not enough of whatever is needed for it to heal because it's made from remnants, just like this universe is. So this doesn't stop the dark matter aberration part of the dark matter from trying to heal itself, unfortunately, because it's not functioning properly, because it has, dementia. It tries to fill the gaps in to what's missing by absorbing energy from other life forms. Now, this is not right. It was not made to do that, but it's misinterpreted the programming of the spark of life. It's misinterpreted the programming of the cosmic all. And so instead of being this good glue that keeps the universe together, which is our bodies and our souls too, everything, planets, nebulas, everything is the dark matter. So the dark matter aberration goes around like a cosmic vampire, absorbing energy that it has no business absorbing. Dark matter does not absorb energy. It just merely holds it together. There is no, dark matter is not a being. It's not a sentient creature. It is just the universe. And it doesn't make choices on what it's going to hold together, what it's not going to hold together, because that's up to the spark of life, the cosmic all. So here is the dark matter aberration, the DMA, trying to heal itself by stealing the energy from other life forces and sources, like a vampire would. And it developed doing this. So anywhere in the universe that's not protected against it, it will infest. And when it infests, it has taught itself, I'm talking about eons and eons and eons ago, that, the moment that our universe went back online, the dark matter aberration was in its present form. And it learned very quickly how to manipulate other life forces and forms to work on its behalf to create the type of energy that it needs. The DMA does not look for energy created from love, caring, harmony, all the things that, should be at the top of every sentient being's list. Instead, it gets its energy from all of the negative, darker emotions and intentions, actions that are done by other sentient and non-sentient life forms.
Well, just imagine what a different world it would have been if the DMA had decided that it wanted to generate more love and giggles in the universe to snack on instead.
Well, nothing, snacking on anything is not good. You're right. But, because the DMA exists, this completely topsy-turvied the universe. And the more sophisticated, older inhabitants of the universe, we call them extraterrestrials, but we're extraterrestrials too. People living on Earth, their biology comes from off-world. So everybody is an ET here, okay? We put out, before the DMA infested the Earth, because it wasn't always this way. The ET Earth Consortium, as they were bioengineering the Earth while they were positioning the moon, because they did shape and position the moon where it is, which is part of the bioengineering technique that they use, by the way. When they did this, they had up this protective Earth force field. And it was integrated in with the magnetic force field that protects the Earth from the sun's very forceful energetic particles, like when there's a coronal mass ejection, solar flare, where there's escape of coronal winds, solar winds. These things can roll over planets that don't have atmospheres. They can strip atmospheres. But when you have the moon as they position it, the sun the way it is, the Earth the way that it works, and you do everything right, you have this protective field that not only protects the Earth from those forces so that life can exist here, but it also specifically, this Earth ancient protective force field kept out the DMA. So any sophisticated life force in the universe has these protective force fields that keep the DMA out, so that the DMA is only going to be feeding. It's an opportunist feeder. It's going to feed on any place that doesn't have this protective force field. So in the beginning, when we were all bioengineered, the Earth was terraformed and the moon got put in place and all that, this ancient protective force field was there. Now, everything is frequency, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this particular ancient force field was frequency loaded, and it was made from, it's called the music of the spheres, and it's a frequency, and scientists are just learning how to record the sounds that the universe is making. Now, the more sophisticated their equipment gets, the more of an actual tune everybody's going to want to hear, they're going to hear. Right now, it's just bleeps and squiggles and a little bit of white noise, and some oops and gloops and lops. But it is part of the music of the spheres. So the music of the spheres goes into everywhere in the universe that this type of a protective force field exists to keep out the DMA. It's made up of the frequencies of the music of the spheres. That's important to know. Now, there came a time thousands of years ago when this ET conflict happened, and it was a battle for the Earth. And it did a lot of damage. In fact, so much damage that it destroyed the planet. It's only because of the core matrix, which streams everything in our universe, that we were rebooted and resurrected.
And do you think the same thing could have happened to Mars? Like a similar kind of situation up there?
Yes. Mars was lost. There was a planet between Mars and Jupiter that's now an asteroid belt. That was destroyed, never got rebuilt.
So do you
there's
think,
a lot. What?
Do you think they might have had protective force fields at one point around the other planets in the solar system?
Yes. I'm quite sure of it.
Right.
They would not have, there would have been, and there still is actually a force field around the entire solar system.
I was going to ask you, are there any operational force fields still left?
Oh yeah, there is and remains to be these magnetic fields around all objects. Mm-hmm. Okay, these were not destroyed, and that's why we still have this magnetic field, which helps to rebuff a lot of what the sun throws at us. When that force field is in the south mode, we get geomagnetic storms when we're hit with these solar particles. When that magnetic field is in the north direction, it tends to push it away. And that type of field also goes all the way around our solar system. And then go beyond that, it goes all around the Milky Way, which is the galaxy that we're in. And every galaxy, every planet should have it where there's intelligent life there. But the ancient protective force field that I'm talking about, built by the music of the spheres, is an intentional being created field. Whether that being is physical or is in a different form, because not all life or beings are in physical form in our universe.
Right.
They're in
yeah.
different levels, right? Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, but the ET Earth Consortium, who, by the way, still live on Earth, they did not want this other ET group to basically invade our planet for many reasons. First one is because the ET Earth Consortium, which is made up of many different races of beings all around the universe, they were, by their own rules and laws, allowed to be here and bioengineer us by something called the Law of Panspermia. The Cosmic Law of Panspermia, this is literally universal. Depending on how it happens, whether a planet that had life on it has broken up, or ETs have visited other worlds, or some sort of genetics got into asteroids, meteors, rogue planets that collided with other planets, which, by the way, happened on the Earth. The Earth did collide with another planet in the way, way, way back. By panspermia law, whoever is the originator owner of those genetics has the right to follow them to where they end up and to control what happens to their own genetics. And in the case of, I'm just going to talk about Earth. In the case of Earth, by the time they got here, the growth of life forms had already happened on the planet, and it was not really well done. Earth was and remains to be a very volatile planet, not totally conducive to a smooth living situation. You've got your earthquakes and your volcanoes, and you've got your storms. You've got your weather patterns. You've got all sorts of things that can just destroy a life form. So the planet really needed to be overhauled. And if Earth was left the way that it was developing, reptiles, dinosaurs would have continued to dominate. And this was not in the mold of what this ET consortium wanted to do. So there was a cleaning of the slate on the planet in a way. It's not that the ET consortium did it. I think everybody should know that there were certain natural disasters that happened on the planet, which caused the leaving of the planet of the large dinosaurs. And it was into this environment that the ET Earth Consortium came. And from there, they began to bioengineer based on what was here already without them. Remember, this is their genetics. And then introducing their own scientific way of developing a whole new species called humans. That was a combination of all of the ET Earth Consortium members, which included also those which would have part of the reptilian genetics, but in the proper measure. So instead of the reptilian being the dominant force that would create these huge dinosaurs, you had the reptilians where their brain, the human brain, is very dependent on the reptilian genetics. And I also want to add at this point, and this is very important, that there's a big to-do out there with people here on the planet who have determined that the reptilian race of ETs are the bad guys and everybody else is the good guys. This is false. Members of the ET Earth Consortium include part of the reptilian race. Mm-hmm. But it's also true that the race that came in to try to take over the Earth were reptilian. In other words, you had reptilians battling reptilians, but in the ET Earth Consortium, no person, a member of the ET Earth Consortium, was ever infested or dominated or influenced by the DMA, ever. There are members of what humans call the reptilians that are the good guys. And these are the ones that are part of the ET Earth Consortium. And then you have your members of another faction of the reptilians who are DMA infested, who wanted to take control of this planet. And this is what caused the ET conflict. And this ET conflict ended with the destruction of Earth's ancient lost protective force field, which is the only way that the DMA could gain entry to the Earth. And I'm going to call them the DMA reptilians. They're here too. Now, they lost most everything. Let me make this very clear. They lost that conflict, but they lost their technology, most of it. They lost most of their ships. They lost their ability to leave, but they're here. They won that. And once Earth's protective force field went down thousands of years ago, and the DMA first, through these reptilians, were able to come here and infest the planet, and they began to reshape our planet so that the very worst of human nature, energy, emotions, actions were manipulated for the sole purpose of feeding the DMA. And it's nonstop. And over time, our planet changed from one of growth, evolution, harmony. And by the way, you can be peaceful, but also be warriors. It has to be peace through strength. So we're not talking about a wuss planet here. Okay? We're talking about a planet that was educated by the ET Earth Consortium. There's so much of this information that you can find in ancient text or the Sumerian clay tablets. You find little bits and pieces of the information that I'm giving you right now. You can find it hidden in plain sight. Now, granted, most everything that's written about these ancient times, the conflict between the ETs, the Great War, the destruction of the planet, these are written by people, humans, who were not alive during those times. It's what's been passed down through the millenniums. So, it's like playing that game telephone, where you whisper something in someone's ear, like a sentence, and by the time it gets to the last person, it doesn't even sound like the sentence that it originated as. That's how folklore went down. So what I'm telling you is the unadulterated version. This is the sort of easy storytelling version, but it doesn't contain any of the wrong sort of folklorish information in it. Okay, moving on. When this Earth's protective force field went down, it was not rebuilt. I really don't know why. I don't have that information, but it would have something to do with the DMA infestation on the planet, and that the planet was being turned into something that did not resemble what it was. And that's not a good thing. And eventually, this actually flipped us from being in a proper dominant coexisting timeline into a wrong dominant coexisting timeline, or what I like to call bizarro world. Nothing was right. Bad was elevated. Good was denounced. the DMA had a way of finding the weakest humans, absorbed their energy and their souls, and resaturated them with the DMA force. And these DMA influenced minions became like the overseers and the controllers on the planet, making sure that all of this negative energy was being produced. We're talking about like the violence that these DMA influenced reps brought in to the planet. This was the model of the violence and the cruelty and the unfairness and all of the bad things that we have here stems from this position.
They brought in a blueprint for us.
Very well put. This was a new blueprint. And I think, now I'm not positive, I don't really know the answer to this one exactly, but I think that it was this new blueprint flipping us into the wrong dominant coexisting timeline that prevented the ET Earth Consortium from rebuilding Earth's ancient protective force field. I just don't know. I just don't know why that would stop them. But for some reason, they could not. They either could or would not. Something was preventing them. I would love to ask them, but I don't. Sorry.
Yeah, we'd all like
nobody's
to know.
Talking. No,
we'd like to know. Thanks. Drop us a line here.
Yes, right. Nobody's talking. So, the fact of the matter is what is what is. And to understand it is to understand the world today. Now, the core matrix, as you and I have talked about in previous shows, and I do recommend for everyone watching this show to watch all of our other shows, because we talk about a lot of these topics, the basics of the core matrix, for example, and how it works and what the dominant coexisting timeline is and what timeline edits and reboots and time shifts are. We discuss all of that, and I really want people to go and watch those shows for that. So the core matrix functions to keep the universe rolling along, but it has to contend with the DMA.
The virus in the system. It's like you've got your antivirus software and then the virus, and they're just trying to compete for your computer space.
Yeah. I mean, macrocosm, microcosm.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it?
Absolutely so true.
So fractal.
Absolutely. So here we are, and we're thousands and thousands of years down the line. Now, when the core matrix reboots us, in other words, takes us offline, reconstructs us with the elements that it has in its hardware, soft drive, and it restreams us out, it re-puts us back together, but it has to use all of the elements that are there. And one of the elements that was now put into our timeline was this very destructive and volatile conflict and the energy that was being used against each other. It was definitely the war of the ETs in our solar system. So that energy is still around, is still in the computer, and it time loops. A time loop is when an event comes back into our timeline when there's been a timeline edit or a reboot or a time shift. And the energy that was used to take down the force field, to destroy the planet and a lot of the solar system is still around. And the core matrix works. The core matrix prime directive works to make sure that this planet ending energy does not come back and do it again. Unfortunately, because we've been in the wrong dominant coexisting timeline for so long, and the DMA influence minions have been added for so long, that we have reached an endpoint. In other words, remaining in the wrong dominant coexisting timeline is no longer sustainable. It started happening when the industrial age started. And from there, we progressed very, very rapidly into where we are tech-wise. And now we have these nuke threats all over the place, any one of which could send us back to Kingdom Come. And then something happened. And this was actually Pigtail Gurl's idea. It was to form a very special group called the Warriors of Light. Why don't you explain how you got the idea?
Well, it all started back in the day when I started up my own channel, and I was sitting there just thinking about getting people together to do positive things with intention, basically, like group missions of focus and intent. Or some people might call it magical shifts, manifestations, And I was very interested in doing group work of people coming together with a common focus to make the world better, really, see a problem, try to help it. That was my goal. And because of this, I'd always been interested in what you were doing, Starfire, anyway. And I'd been following your work. And I knew that you'd also had some groups and you were interested in similar stuff. So we were just on the same vibe at the same time, I think. Yeah, so I was just eager to meet like-minded individuals. So I contacted you, and we were back in those days. We were looking at the rain situation because there were some fires. There was a lack of rain. What was it? 2019, maybe.
Yeah.
So
there was the Amazon
the Amazon. So I gathered the troops for the Warriors of Light group, the OWOL group. And got the ball rolling because I thought it was really necessary that there were a lot of things that if a few people came together, we could tackle using your methods, because I knew you had some methods that worked. You see, that's another
Reality
reason why I contacted you in particular, Starfire, because I'm always interested in things that work. You know, I'm tired of trying things that don't work. I like to use things that work. So that's what drew me towards you, of course. And then we grew it from there, really, didn't we? We gathered the troops, we gathered the Warriors of Light, and we started small, and we became a little bit more adventurous as we went along, as we grew the group, and we grew our focus and our intentions. And then it was really when we started to realize that this wrong, dominant, coexisting timeline was just non-sustainable. And I think you and I were feeling it. Many of the WOL group were feeling it too. So that's how we came upon this idea, wasn't it? For the Music of the Spheres force field activation mission that we've been working on.
Right. I mean,
and here we are.
I mean, if we wanted to tackle the root problem.
Yeah, that's what we wanted, wasn't it? Yeah.
Which is the DMA. The DMA is the source of all evil in the universe because it is a cosmic vampire. It is the cosmic vampire.
Yeah, and if you're not taking care of that, everything else is just putting band-aids on holes, isn't it? And, you cover up one hole and the water just comes out somewhere else.
Exactly.
Because you haven't taken care of the fact the water is there coming through.
But, of course, the biggest challenge for the Warriors of Light was, how do you build Earth's protective force field? And how do you pull in the music of the spheres? Now, as you recall, many months long ago, back in 2021, I told you that I knew the music of the spheres tune.
Yes, you did.
And I was practically born knowing this music. Problem was, it was just me. It didn't exist in the world. And I really... music is my greatest love. I mean, I write songs, I sing. The world doesn't know about this, but it's really, I've even written a Broadway musical that no one has ever seen or heard. Music is really my big thing. And you might think that's sort of funny because I do all this science stuff with the core matrix and time shifts and stuff.
But not really, because I think in the old days as well, music was always a discipline for true scholars. Music has always been there with the sciences.
No, it's true. It's true. But I'm very creative. And I have a left brain and right brain, which are equal. I don't have a barrier between them. They're interlinked. So I knew this tune. And back in 2021, I said to you, look, why don't I sing you this tune and please record it so that at least somebody other than me will have this piece of the music of the spheres.
Yes.
Because I knew that this was the foundation music and frequency to this ancient force field. This is just passed down through my genetics. Okay. I'll put it that way. And I did so, right? You recorded it.
I did. I still have it.
Right. Of course. But it still remained that aside from me knowing it and now you knowing it, that was it. It was not in the world. As time went by, we worked with our Warrior of Lights group to rebuild what we could of this ancient protective force field, but without the music of the spheres. And it was like rebuilding it through imagery. That's all I'll say. Was the first leg of the journey. And there was a formula. I knew it. You and I did it. The group did it. And lo and behold, it worked. Not only was this literal ancient force field placed around the entire Earth, but it got activated and it began functioning. And it began targeting and cleaning out DMA infestation that I call DMA bog. You know, bog is that stuff like when you're on your computer and you don't have the right protective software, really nasty things can get put onto your hard drive that you don't want there. And it usually, it gets on there and you don't even know that they put it there.
Mm-hmm. Just sneaking in there.
That's bog. It bogs down your computer.
Yeah, bogs down, bogs up.
And if the bog gets at its worst, it can actually destroy your life's work if that's on your computer.
Right.
So having this protection is really important. And in fact, on your computer, it's best to have the protection that prevents this bog from getting onto your hard drive to begin with, instead of waiting for it to get there and then cleaning it out from there.
It's always better to prevent.
Well, in this case, this part of the force field that we were rebuilding just by using humans from countries all over the world, there was no instructions to it. In other words, we're not saying, do this, do that. It knows its job is to keep out the DMA. So it happened. It went online, so to speak. So Warriors of Light from all over the world, based on a formula which was created, rebuilt this force field, this protective force field that hadn't been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It was fantastic.
Yeah, maybe the fact that we humans played a role in it is maybe what, as part of the intention overall, the fact that we put our energy into it, maybe that's what's going to make it stronger this time.
Very, very possible. So it's also possible, and I don't know the answer to this, but it's also possible that because humans began to do this, members of the ET Earth Consortium were able to join in. It's a possibility. So maybe they were just waiting for humans to get to a certain place. But what we do know is that this happened at some point in 2021, and it got rebuilt. It became activated, and it was functioning. And its initial function, as it was currently conceived, was just to keep any more DMA from coming onto the planet. Because when you prevent more DMA from coming onto the planet, you are restricting how much of the DMA energy the DMA infestation has to keep us in the wrong dominant coexisting timeline.
So how does that work? Does it burn itself up while it's here? Does it use itself up energetically, this DMA energetic? Can it be used up and so it has to bring more in? How is that working?
Well, it appears, and I'm just piecing this together. I don't know all the answers to that either. But from what I'm piecing together, this force field, as I said, was created from the music of the spheres, which is a frequency, and it's a harmonic frequency that doesn't exist on the planet as it exists in the universe. But when it forms this, when it coalesces and creates this natural protective force field, that frequency rebuffs the DMA. The DMA cannot penetrate it. It cannot make its way through it. In fact, it doesn't want to be anywhere near this. It repels it.
Mm-hmm. Okay? Like a bug spray.
A bug spray made of love and light. A lot of good stuff. So now you have no more DMA coming onto the planet. And this is just since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have all of these DMA influenced minions continuing on with their horrific agendas, whatever they may be. And they are using up the DMA infestation energy that is here. And they needed that continued DMA energy coming in to keep what they're doing reinforced.
So it's like for them a power source that they can plug into, like someone who's on the good side might plug into bliss or joy to enhance their abilities or potency. They will feed from that energy to give them self power. Is that correct?
Yes. And of course, the power that gives them the most of what they need, because they are serving the DMA. Mm-hmm. Even though these minions don't even know that the DMA exists, mm-hmm. they are indebted completely 100% to what they know to be a dark and evil force.
Yeah.
Okay. And they bow to this force is called many different names, and no two may view it in the same way, but they all know it's wrong, it's evil, and they are taking and not giving. So with the ancient previously lost protective force field back up, suddenly the DMA influenced minions are cut off from their refreshments. Obviously, this is beginning to cause a loss of their grip on their way of being. The force field, nor the work that Warrior of Lights did on this, took any sides or named any names or did anything. This is just, get us back, get the DMA the heck out of here. Let us be who we are and get us out of the wrong dominant coexisting timeline.
Right.
Because we are flirting with the ever looming, time looping, planet ending nuke problem. I call it a nuke problem because that's how modern day humans are expressing the greater powerful energy used during the ET wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's happening right now in the world is very real and very dangerous. It is the end game. And now we have a chance for that end game to be, to end positively.
Yay.
I couldn't believe it. Okay. So, you and I are just watching the effects of having this ancient Earth's protective force field back in place in that particular form, knowing that there's, another leg to the mission.
Right. Yes. Full activation.
And that full activation, which is to get us out completely out of the wrong dominant coexisting timeline. At the same time that we're doing this, the core matrix, by all appearances, is working in concert, pun intended, with us to help rebuild this protective force field. It's doing it through timeline the edits, the reboots. It's amazing. And so I've been able to document this all through this process. I mean, it's all new ground. I'm learning every day. It's fantastic. Then on December the 13th, 2021, something miraculous happened. I call it the core matrix miracle. And the one person in the world that would understand what this meant was you.
That's right.
Because way before that, you had recorded a particular tune. You understood what the tune was. We were working together on rebuilding Earth's protective force field. We knew it was successful. And by the way, it will never come down again. Never. Well, on December the 13th, in my time zone, December the 14th in other people's time zones, I had taken a nap, and I woke up and I said, oh, well, I'll just turn on the TV and see what's going on in the world. So I just turned on the TV and I went, it was dark and I was working with the remote and I clicked on a channel that I didn't intend to. And there was a music concert. I didn't know what it was. It was in the middle of the whole thing. And a man begins to sing. I didn't know who he was. I don't know what I was looking at. And he began to sing. And I'm sort of, half asleep, still kind of groggy. And, I start to sing along, hum along with this tune. And then within like a couple of seconds, I went, what? He was singing the song. He was singing the song that I had sung to you, that did not exist in the world except what I had sung to you and that you had recorded. So you had a recording of this.
Yeah, I had a recording. And that's the way the timeline edits work, isn't it, Starfire? Like things that weren't there can suddenly appear and things that were there can suddenly disappear.
Right.
Yes.
This was done strictly by the core matrix.
Yeah.
And a whole series of events that I happen to have been documenting up to that point, not knowing this was going to happen. In that moment, I realized that the core matrix had been able to edit back in part of the proper dominant coexisting timeline into our system. And because it works with energies and the elements of those energies, I knew that if this song was back in the world, then a chunk of the wrong dominant coexisting timeline was now gone forever.
Yeah, and that's why things seemingly just suddenly appear.
Right.
It's because like literally it's been one bit's taken out and a bit from another coexisting timeline. The proper one is suddenly arriving and put in, and it has different elements within it. But those elements are somehow matching new elements that were being brought into being around that time that it could align itself with. Yes.
Right. Well, the core matrix, as part of its editing program, it interweaves, backfills, and stabilizes all other timeline edits that it does. So it has a way of doing that. I was so overwhelmed with what I was realizing. I literally began to sob. Mm-hmm. Now, I got to tell you, the last time I sobbed was a long time ago, and it was because it was a terrible thing that had happened. So this time, it was the most joyous. I knew that to me, it was like a miracle.
It is a miracle.
Right. And I, now, since you and I live in different time zones, as I've explained, I really needed to talk with you because this was, I was just overwhelmed. I just couldn't stop. I don't mean crying. I mean sobbing with joy. With joy. With joy and the realization that we were saved. I knew it.
Amen, sister.
I knew it. So fortunately, you were awake and available. And so within minutes of my having this epiphany happen, you and I were getting into it. And we got deep into research right away. And what we discovered between us right away was that this music was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Not only was it everywhere, it was backfilled and interwoven into the history of the planet.
Yeah, all the way back there.
It goes back hundreds of years. It's
Yeah.
sung. It's played by orchestras. It's sung by everybody from kids to professionals. It's in movies, TV shows.
It's real popular.
It's very popular. Very popular.
1 minute it was nowhere. Suddenly it was everywhere.
Right. It was not in our dominant coexisting
I'd
timeline.
never heard it before, Starfire. I'd never heard it before that day.
And you are big on music.
I am.
And you are also a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
So, music was your thing. And in all of those months between my singing the tune for you and you recording it, you had every opportunity to try to figure out, where does it come from? You never did. Because it didn't exist.
Yeah, and no synchronicity was bringing it to us because it wasn't out there. And then suddenly, blam.
It's there. And this is how the core matrix is. It's like, this could have taken the core matrix thousands of years to do, but for us, it's the blink of an eye. For me, it's the time. It's in the hour or so when I fell asleep to take a nap and woke up again, a whole other world.
Mm.
So in order for that Music of the Seers tune to be in our world now meant that a big chunk of the wrong dominant coexisting timeline was bye-bye. And I knew that we were going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was still a fight.
And that miracle was quite recent, wasn't it? It wasn't so long ago.
No, it was December the 13th.
December the 13th, 14th. That's right.
Right.
You said the
date.
I
said, depending on your time zone.
That's right.
So.
And a lot has been shifting since then, if people notice.
Oh, my gosh.
So much. If you look at the timeline of what Starfire Tor is saying here, and then you map it out and you have a little think about some of the times that she mentions and things, you will see correlations with big shifts going on the scene.
Yeah, right. Now, I've been doing reports on the core matrix, for years and years and years and years and years. So I document all this stuff. But prior to this happening, I started making these memes, the rise of the roar.
So I have to say, Starfire, I've been really loving the memes that have been on show during this evening's podcast. And I'd like to really talk a bit more in depth about this concept, the rise of the roar. And what does this exactly mean? I guess all the people at home would like to hear your perspective on it as the creator of the memes that we are very much enjoying today.
Thank you.
I guess it's all coming back to the frequency, isn't it?
It's all coming back to be the frequency, which is what you and I originally started doing more than a year ago to help rebuild Earth's ancient and once lost protective force field. This is all about what to do with the dark matter aberration of the DMA. I think I'm going to take it simple first. A roar. That's a very loud noise. A roar can be made by a human who wants to get something across, wants to rise above the din of the crowd. A roar can be a solo roar. It can be a group of people getting together and creating an even larger roar. It can be the roar of a jet engine, the roar of a car, the roar of a lion, a tiger, a bear. A roar has meaning. It's, in some cases, territorial, saying, this belongs to me. And I'm giving you fair warning. Don't mess with my space. Don't mess with my family. Don't mess like with a lion. Don't mess with my pride. But in the case that we're talking about, that roar is anything and everything that involves a certain frequency that can shatter the DMA. Now, let me explain that further. Most everybody is probably familiar with a certain sound, sometimes coming out of an opera singer, that can shatter a wine glass. Somebody makes a sound or something electronic makes a sound, and that sound shatters the glass. Okay. What does that? Well, that's a frequency. The sound coming out of that person making that note, or from a machine making that note, the frequency of that matches up with the frequency of the glass, amplifies. The glass cannot sustain itself. It cannot sustain. That's an important word, sustain. It cannot sustain its integrity, its shape, its form, its usefulness, and it shatters. What happens when it shatters? You can't use it anymore. Okay. Then think about earthquakes. Now, most people don't know this, so it may come as some surprise that earthquakes also have frequencies, and they're not all the same. Now, let's say there's a big earthquake, and you have two buildings standing just feet away from each other, the same height, roughly the same shape, but they're not made the same. They're not made exactly the same materials. They're not exactly made with the same design. And when the earthquake frequency comes through, one of them has a frequency that matches up with the quake. And so when that happens, just like that wine glass, that building's going to shake, 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 shake so badly, it's going to be very damaged, perhaps totally destroyed. But the building next to it, that building's frequency does not sync up with the earthquake frequency. And so that other building, depending on the magnitude of the quake, may just get cosmetic damage. So one fractures and it is destroyed, and the other one, cosmetic damage. So frequencies and syncing up frequencies matter.
Definitely.
Right. So there is a sound, a roar from the music of the spheres, which is the music, literal symphony, many, many different symphonies that the universe actually makes or plays. Humans are only allowed to hear a small fraction of it, mostly in beeps and white noise sounds and thrums and oops and ops, because they don't yet have the technology that can hear the symphony that is playing, the symphony playing from the earth, the symphony playing from our sun, from the moon, from the other planets and objects in our solar system, or going beyond that, the galaxy, other galaxies. Everybody is a musician in the universe. Mm-hmm. So one day humans will be able to hear this, but the earth hears it. Our solar system hears it. And the interesting thing about it is that there are some tunes from the music of the sphere which can sync up with the frequency of the dark matter aberration. And when that happens, the DMA shatters. Now, this is very important to know, because that aforementioned Earth's protective force field that was lost thousands of years ago during an ET conflict. And when that went down, when that shield went down, that shield had a certain frequency, and it played a tune that kept the DMA off of our planet, did not allow it to come on, because the DMA in the universe, very well-known force, and it only can infest planets and habitats that are unprotected. So once this force field went down, the DMA came in, infested, and what does it do? What is its main goal? It feeds on unprotected energy. Welcome to planet Earth.
Yeah, well, it's also represented in our bodies. It affects us on our health. It's because it sounds a bit like an immune system, a system that's set there to protect you from invading pathogens. Everything is frequency down to our bodies. And I'm sure that even if we can't hear the frequency with our ears, we can certainly feel it. All the frequencies that are changing around us in the environment. Right. When we go from not being DMA infested to being DMA infested, we might not hear the change in the frequency, but we're all feeling it, right?
That's right. And of course, because this has been on this planet for thousands of years, the people alive today have no true knowledge of what it's like to be in a world without this negative force.
This frequency
that is feeding on us, feeding on the energy of the planet, feeding on humans, feeding on animals. It's crazy stuff, but this is what threw us into the wrong dominant coexisting timeline, or what I call bizarro world. And it's so unsustainable now. It's so unsustainable that if the wrong dominant coexisting timeline continues, even the smallest little bit more, we're going to end up in a place where there are no winners. It doesn't matter what you believe in this world. It doesn't matter what you do, good or bad, or however anybody looks at it. Nobody wins except for the DMA, because it just says, that planet's gone. To just move on to the next.
So this is one of the benefits of the force field, is that the force field being there, I'm just recapping, is creating new potentials for different frequencies to be existing around us. So it's creating new frequencies, new sounds. And then this sound is creating this rise of the roar within the frequency field itself of just our environment, as this frequency is clearing out the bog and the DMA and shattering it. But at the same time, it's then allowing us to change our frequency. And that's rising up alongside this new symphony of sound that's emanating from this newly re-established force field. Is that correct?
Got it. You got it. You
summarized it.
Yeah.
Correctly?
Be the frequency. And and then when you that's the very basic level, and it's important to understand that basic. So when the original protective force field was created, like I said, it rebuffed the dark matter aberration. When it went down, there was nothing between us and it.
Yeah.
So it came and it overtook the planet. And because of the way that it was causing people, it was an invasion of the body snatchers.
Quite literally. Quite
literally. That's how it created its minions and sub-minions and peons and thralls.
It's like any pathogen or parasite.
Right. And this force field, this shield, was recently literally rebuilt. It was done by the activities of the core matrix and its many timeline edits and reboots. And it was also assisted by a wonderful group of people in a program called Be the Frequency that helped to rebuild this force field. And once it went up, just at the end of 2021, it was immediately activated because it was built on the part of the force field that touches on the music of the spheres. So it's really great. And so since this time in 2021, when this field got rebuilt, no new DMA has been able to access the Earth. So,
and it's been clearing it out too. Not only can it not be accessed, but now this frequency is clearing it out, right?
Right. This frequency of the force field was almost 100% specifically created because not only does it rebuff the DMA, it shatters it. It renders it not able to do its work. So the moment that this shield became rebuilt and activated, we suddenly began to see all of these DMA bog reveals. Oh, there's that evidence that the DMA, the source of all evil, is behind this and is behind that. And look at who all the minions are and look what they did. And oh my goodness, that too. Oh, I think we knew something was going on, but now we know. Right. Now we have the proof. Now we have the evidence. We know that evil is not just a concept. It's here. And it's been messing with us in the worst of ways, putting us into an unsustainable planet, which, as we discussed, is being swapped out for the proper dominant coexisting timeline.
Yeah, because I seem to remember you said that the timelines, they stream as frequencies. So they're like different channels. So each one's on its own frequency. So change the frequency, change the channel, right?
Very much so, just like those old crystal radios. The core matrix streams every single timeline, coexisting timeline ever. Once they stream, they're still there, but they become dormant. And the core matrix just uses the elements from them to pick and choose what it wants to use in the editing process. Just like you're an editor, so is the core matrix.
Yeah, that's why I understand. That's why I understand all of this stuff. I can apply it into my own life.
Right. So every timeline, I call them coexisting because they're not parallel to us. They're not running next to us. Every single timeline coexist, streams in the exact same place, but they're separated by the different frequencies. And that's how they are recognized. So depending on what you're tuning into, depends on which timeline, but the core matrix controls that. The core matrix controls that our consciousness, our main consciousness, is in the moment, in the present, with whatever the core matrix determines is the most recent dominant coexisting timeline, whether it's the wrong one, which we've been in for thousands of years, and now with the proper one just creeping in, it's really great. So here we are with the rise of the roar. The core matrix does not control or make humans think or feel a certain way. Unlike the DMA, which depends on the control of what humans think and how they act and how they feel. It's all a game of illusion for the DMA because in actuality, it only has a handful of top minions that create these illusions that make us think that they're a major part of everything going on in the world when they're really tricking people into thinking that that's the way it is.
It's like they want to tune us into their frequency.
Correct. But with all of the DMA bog being revealed and cleaned out, more humans than ever are not only waking up to what's really going on. I mean, millions already did, but they didn't know why. They didn't know about the DMA, that the DMA came in and really created these minions from humans whose souls, literally souls, the DMA already consumed, and then refilled these vessels with DMA energy. It's controlling. It's like a puppet master. So, and then we also have those dark sorcerers, which the DMA also created. I'm not sure what dimension of existence the dark sorcerers live in, but minions are right here on planet Earth. So once the newly rebuilt shield began to rebuff and shatter parts of the DMA, the DMA influenced minions and their sub-minions and peons and thralls no longer had refreshing DMA energy to work with because they sure do use it up. And that's why you see this planet of ours, this bizarro world is beginning to shatter. The roar, just like bunches of humans were able to be in concert, be in step with what the core matrix is doing to help to flip us back into the proper dominant coexisting timeline, humans have been roaring.
They have.
And some humans already know how to roar loudly. Some are little squeakers. But when you take a whole bunch of little squeakers, you put them together, they can make a mighty roar. And that's what's happening now. Basically, people are saying, no, just it's over. We're just working on how to let the minions know their day of rule is done. And anybody who wants to wake up to this, wake up. But the job is no longer to get the rabid believers who have been compromised to wake up, because I'm not really sure that's possible anymore. But there are more than enough people who are awake, more of it are awakening. And people have their different ways of doing that. They they use different names and different belief systems to observe the same thing that we're talking about, except what you and I are talking about is the actual basic foundation of what's really going on.
Right.
And then when you come into today's human, depending on who they are, they can talk about changes of frequencies. They can talk about, let's get the souls aligned up. Let's get the angels aligned. Let's even get ETs aligned. All of those things are legit, but they don't touch on the foundation. And I think that what you and I would like to do is we'd like to see everybody understand the foundation evil that is here, that is cosmic. And because it's energy, it really can't be destroyed, but it can be shattered and moved out of a system. It can be contained and controlled and pretty much given the heave-ho off of the planet.
Yes, good news.
So every day, we see dark matter aberration bog revealed. Its infestation, it puts things into humans and into the planet and into animals and into your brains and your bodies and into everything that it's unwanted, but you think you want it. You shouldn't want it, but you're made to think, oh, yeah, that's good for me. No, nothing about the DMA is good for you. Now, to get into our proper dominant coexisting timeline, it's not going to be the way it was thousands of years ago, before the ET conflict and before the original shield went down, because we've moved on. We're older. We've been through PTSD as a planet and as a people.
We need to heal a lot of trauma.
We need to heal in many, many ways. And a great deal of that healing has to do with understanding the origin of the wound, the origin of what caused the PTSD.
That's why it's so important to get this knowledge out there, because I know that Starfire and myself are both healers. So, we understand it on the micro and the macro level, how the healing has to be simultaneously, like across the board. This is why this force field is such good news for us right now, to allow this space for the healing, because we're all working together now.
And the human roar.
Yeah, and the human roar. We're all working together now to build that frequency, and it's a frequency of healing.
Right. And of course, as we've spoken about, and as I've written about, there is a very special tune from the music of the spheres, which you and I are going to be putting out there in the not too distant future. The world can join in. It's going to be amazing.
And that's what it's building up towards. This new frequency is going to be expressed ultimately in the world's biggest party.
The world's biggest party. And it's going to be great. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody and anybody can join in. It's going to be fantastic. This is a show about hope. This is happening. I mean, we all go through, I call it PTSD, absolutely true. We all go through stages of depression, stages of loss. Some of these losses have been very physical. Some of them are emotional or spiritual. But if you're somebody who hasn't experienced some form of loss, even if it's just your compassionately feeling for other people, there's something wrong with you. There's something seriously wrong if you're not aware of how much damage is going on in the world today and for the past many thousands of years. You just have to look at the history, just the known history of this world. I mean, just what you know or you think is history.
Mm-hmm.
It's a savage planet. It wasn't always that way. It was not always that way. So you and I, we want to bring the people of the earth hope and understanding that we can and do not only make a difference, we are part of the roar, which flips our planet from the wrong dominant coexisting timeline to a proper dominant coexisting timeline. We, together with the core matrix, can shatter the dark matter aberration.
And it's very real. People have to understand that frequencies are very real and are the basis for all life, and that we must never underestimate the power of the raw and of these frequencies and of ourselves to bring this change, even if we've got that memory of it maybe in the past, not being able to achieve it. Now really is the time. This is the message. It's here. This is our chance to really have a shift. an actual,
Really?
a tangible shift that we can all actually experience, not something we have to keep waiting for in the future, something that's happening now and that we're all a part of and that we can achieve it.
Right. Because anyone who's just sitting around right now, the way the world is today, and thinks that they don't have to look at it, that they don't have to be part of it because maybe they've got a whole lot of money or, they've got something that protects them. This is not a good thought. This is not sustainable either. You really have to, if you don't think that you yourself are in jeopardy, please look at what's happening to your neighbors or your friends or people you don't even know. Open your eyes. And like you said, now is the time because there is no tomorrow for that time.
That's it.
And you can't trust anybody, no matter what your belief is. You cannot trust anybody who does not bring results. Now, there are a lot of problems that need to be dealt with now so that we can, when you and I talk about this shattering, we've been documenting it. It's real, it's tangible, it's physical, and it's what brings that hope.
Exactly.
And the momentum is happening right now.
It's here.
And it will never repeat itself. It's now or never.
Now or never. That's right. Never give up, never give in.
The rise of the roar. And the last thing I want to say, and I've spoken about this before and written about it, the core matrix has something called an assimilation program. And that assimilation program keeps humans believing that they only live in a single timeline that goes from the past to the present and flows into the future. And that's not correct. We live in multiple coexisting timelines, not parallel worlds or parallel universes. I just proved that theory. It was good science fiction, good science theory. But when I discovered the core matrix, all of that goes out the window. Every single coexisting timeline exists in the same space and is only separated by its individual frequencies. So we do not live in a holographic universe. Okay? We do not live in a computer program. It's okay for humans to think of it in those terms to begin with, because it allows the concept to take a form. But that's not correct. It's just what it is beyond human understanding at the moment. I'm working on that, okay? So every single timeline coexists in the same space. It's just like if you're listening to the old-fashioned radio and you have a radio set and you change the dial, and depending how you change the dial, you tune into different crystal frequencies and you pick up whatever radio station you're going for. Yet all those radio stations are still streaming. They're still out there doing their thing. They're out there. And you decide what you're going to tune in, and that's the only thing you're going to hear. But just because that's the only thing you tuned in on and you're going to hear, it doesn't mean that everything else stops. No.
Right.
And that's the same thing with coexisting timelines. That's very important for humans to understand.
So our proper dominant timeline is still streaming somewhere. We're trying to tune back into it. Is that right? Or will that timeline exist in parallel, like by itself? So even if we get back onto that timeline, will we just flip our timeline into another version of that one that will be running, or we're going to merge that will flip into us?
No. Once there's been a timeline edit or a reboot, we are now thrown into a new dominant coexisting timeline, and you can never return to what was.
Right.
They still stream. The core matrix still streams them and uses bits of, like plucks pieces of them. Like if it's writing a book or a movie, it can go back to any coexisting timeline and pick an element from it to use in a future coexisting timeline, but we can't go back to what was. It's done. It's gone. So we can never return to what was. What the core matrix has been doing through its prime directive is to rebuild a new, proper, dominant coexisting timeline, being very aware of where we are today.
Right. So it's trying to build us a one that will go with our past, basically, one that will fit in to what we have already on offer.
Right. Basically, without the DMA being dominant. That's the key.
Right. So
without
there's no set way it has to look. There's no the proper dominant timeline has to be A, B, or C, or it doesn't work. There could be different various combinations of it.
Well, that's exactly how it is. But the dominant feature is dominant coexisting timeline. The dominant feature is that it has to be without the DMA, the source of all evil, without that being the dominant force in the timeline. So when you remove that as a dominant, that's what makes it wrong. So when you remove that, then it's a whole new world. Okay?
Yes.
But going back to the assimilation program, normally the way the core matrix prime directive assimilation program works is that humans are cut off from a conscious memory of every other coexisting timeline that they actually still live in. In other words, any previous coexisting timelines that someone who's alive today was alive in those timelines, they're still living that life. We are connected to that. Okay, that's where precognition comes from, and deja vu and all that. But the core matrix understood that our brains, because of the way they work right now, because of the negative influence of the DMA, we cannot handle this information. It's too much of a feed, too much side data download.
Yeah.
So
we don't have the processing power for it.
Well, we can process it in a proper dominant coexisting timeline. I know that because I've been teaching this for decades, and millions of people get it. So the fact that I figured out a way to teach it and they get it, and now they are very aware of things like the time shift effect, the time shift living dead, the changes in the timeline itself. People are beginning to see that and remember that, but more importantly, understand where it comes from and not be taken in by false prophets.
Yes.
Who make claims about what I'm talking about and don't get it right. So this assimilation program is a sanity clause. It keeps humans sane. Dreaming is how humans have a more pure connection with the core matrix. It's more unadulterated. Now I'm noticing something, and I have been talking about this and writing this up in various reports. And this is my opinion now. My opinion is that I think it's best that the core matrix lets some of the assimilation program lag and allows humans and make sure that humans remember these times, these unsustainable end times.
Yes.
Which are the worst the world has ever been. We need to remember this so that we never repeat it, because if our remembrance is swept away and our conscious selves don't remember these times, I think that's a very negative thing. And I'm very pleased to say that I have noticed and made note of in my reports that we are going to retain this memory.
Good. Now, we need to, because we have to learn from the mistakes of the past.
We must remember this worst time in the history of the world.
So, Starfire, when are you going to reveal to us the music of the spheres? I mean, I know that I've heard it. And what are we going to do with that knowledge now that we have it? What's the next step then for us?
Well, as you know, and as we agreed, we are going to pull together people all over the world through the internet and in other ways. We're going to put on a concert. We have a way that we've worked out that everyone's going to be able to join in and do this music. But right now, before we have this set, you and I are going to not tell the world what this music is. It's very important that we play it close to the vest because there are still a lot of bad elements out there who would hijack it.
Right.
So we have to, have all the things in place that are going to protect us and protect this music so that we can do what we want to do. And in the meantime, we want to invite anybody who cares about this planet without them determining what the planet should be. Because a big part of it is, it's not about what you want. We just have to remove the DMA evil.
Right. Yes, exactly.
And then let things sort out. Let humans and perhaps even the ET Earth Consortium may come back onto the scene. They were teachers a long time ago, but, we are in very many ways their children. And they care about us very, very much.
So basically, as a DJ over here, what I'm hearing from you is that we are inviting people to the world's biggest party, and that invitation is also bestowed to our alien ancestor teacher friends.
Correct. That's my
sign me up. I'm definitely on the list. I'm going.
There's my wish on the ET Earth Consortium. I don't know what they're going to do.
It's going to be the best party ever.
Well, from things that we've done in the past, you and I know that there appears to be, it appears to be they are paying attention to what I write, what I say, and what we do on the show. We can't confirm that, but if you look at some of our past podcasts and things that have happened in our solar system that have been documented, things caught on camera, you will note that gives every appearance that they are communicating back in real time. So, like I said, I'm not going to make any grandiose claims here, but there is documented evidence that appears to show that they are communicating back on what's going on here. We want to invite even, musicians, psychics, warriors of light, star seeds, whatever you call yourself, as long as you want this planet to be in the proper dominant coexisting timeline, and you're not coming in with, that things are going to be the way you want them to be. Let them be the way they're supposed to be without the DMA evil.
That's right. And people need to also free their mind and open their mind also to the possibility that this new future, this gateway can be open for us, that we can change things, that we don't have to be stuck in a mindset that only doom and gloom has to happen or, will happen due to ancient prophecies about, these times. I think a lot of people get stuck in the idea that we can't change stuff because it's already just written that it all goes to.
Yeah. And that's, and with the core matrix timeline, the timeline edits, we know that that's not true.
It's not true because it's fluid and we can bring the change if we want to. Right.
Right. But at the same time, we have to be strong.
Yeah.
Warriors of light carry both the sword of light and a wand of light. Depending on what needs to be used, we can do it. So we want to gather millions from all over the world to join in on this music fest, the rise of the roar, the music of the spheres.
If you're listening to this now at home and you're thinking, oh, well, that sounds like me, I want to get involved with that. There's still going to be plenty of time this year. You can come and join in with our new mission that will be upcoming. And to find out how to do that, you just look in the description box for this show, and all the details are in there for you lovely guys at home. So we'll look forward to seeing you in the future for the Music of the Spheres activation, won't we, Starfire?
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for watching our show.
Yes, so thank you, everyone, for joining us for tonight's wonderful show. And we will see you on the next exciting episode of the Time Chronicles. Thank you for watching our podcast. Please share it far and wide. And of course, subscribe to our channel.
If you would like to support our unique work, please consider donating to our fundraiser right now. Every dollar goes toward the research and the production that makes this podcast possible.
Go here to donate. Just click on the link on our channel banner or on any podcast page in the description section. www.gofundme.com/F/The Time Chronicles podcast.